Hello and welcome everyone. This is lesson 3 of my Sewing School series, Learning to Sew Like It's 1985. I am your host, Michelle, and welcome back. And today we are going to do a lengthy video, possibly not too lengthy, on how to read commercial sewing patterns. Now I use these almost exclusively to sew, and I prefer them. So that's what we're going to be using for this series. And I am going to be doing a full sew along with this specific pattern. And I'm going to be doing View C, which is this cute little over the chair, back of the chair caddy situation for my desk chair. I'm contemplating doing the bottom as well. Not really sure, but the bottom needs to be recovered. But this is more functional. This is just kind of cute. So we'll just see how my motivation is come that time. But today we're learning how to read a commercial sewing pattern. There's a lot of information on these. Now, eventually in the series, we will learn to make our own clothes or clothes for others. But I thought a sewing pattern for crafts would be a perfect gateway. So, like always, we will be mostly using the 4-H booklet series from 1985, hence the name of the series. And then I do have a few other supplemental pages from magazines that I will reference as well. Here's one from either I guess that looks very almost 80s, so I'm guessing this is the 1979 magazine. It has nice little, of course, most of the references in the magazines are for garments. I assume they had craft. Maybe they didn't. Maybe this is kind of a, I mean, obviously this pattern is from like the 2000s. I mean, I know they had, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so we'll use that. And then this little sewing handbook mentions sewing patterns as well, how to read them. So we'll be using these and we'll be getting into it. So let's do it. Okay, I've flipped you around. Now, before I start, I'm going to be really honest. I'm getting a little antsy and I want to start sewing with y'all. But it's important that we lay out the foundation, that we understand the foundations and all the tools and things that we need to use to be successful, especially starting out, or like in my case, relearning and mastering the basics. So just kind of hang with me. This will be the last informative, just informative video. The other videos will be, we'll start sewing next video is what I'm saying. We'll be sewing next video. So just bear with me. I'm getting kind of antsy too. So, all right. Like I said, this is the pattern we're going to be using for demonstration and for the sew along. I'm sure this is easy to find, I guess. It's not terribly old. But this is the front of the pattern envelope. This is the back, and it has a lot of information on there. So, let's see. Our book, this isn't going to go into a lot of detail because it's going to be geared more toward garment sewing. So it talks about body measurements. We'll do all of that stuff at some point. But it does talk about pattern symbols, the pattern envelope itself, back of the pattern, that kind of thing. So we'll kind of look at it and see what it tells us. Okay. So the front of the pattern, let's say you've picked out your pattern, right? So the front should have multiple views on it. I assume there should be multiple views, but maybe some of the older ones don't. Whatever. So this one has letters by the different things that you can sew that has the pattern for it in this. Now this particular one, it's kind of not a great representation. They could have done better at pictures. Like this is literally only pictures, but you have this little caddy you can do. So you have this little caddy, and this is literally only like colored actual picture of it. And then you have half of this that you can see. You have this that matches, but this isn't on there. So it's a little funky with the pictures. But anyway, so the front, and then each thing that you can sew will have a letter by it. And then the back has line drawings of everything that you can sew in this particular pattern. This one has quite a lot of sewing room things you can do. It has and then it has each one listed and whatever they're going to call it, whatever they name it. You know, so A, they're calling that a sewing machine tote. And then E is that little caddy. They're calling that a pin cushion. I guess because it has a pin cushion on top. Yeah. And these arm things attach to a dress form. And I guess you put like pins and stuff in it and you can organize stuff on it, I suppose. There's the little tabletop caddy. There's a little chair cover thing we're going to be doing. And a serger cover, I guess. I, serger cover. H, sewing machine cover. And D, an apron. So, it shows you little line drawings, and the letters correspond to the line drawings and the description. So, with the very top here, it tells you fabrics that you need, the type of fabric, and it says 45-inch with nap, such as broadcloth, gingham, poplin, canvas, denim, and duck. So that's going to be just any kind of standard woven kind of material that is 45 inches wide. And then each one tells you, so the sewing machine tote is going to be about this size, 18 by 19 by 8, and then gives centimeters. And it tells you will need 1 and a something yard. That is too small for me to read. Goodness gracious. Okay, 1 1/8 yard. 45-inch wide lining and polyester fleece. Okay, let's skip down to hours. Hours is C, the one I'm doing anywhere. Chair seat and back cover. Fit standard desk chair. You need 1 1/4 yards. And then padding, which I guess, not real sure. Is that foam? Is that batting? I would think it would be batting. You need 7/8 of a yard. Yes, 7/8 of a yard. 45-inch wide polyester fleece. See, if you read the entire thing, then you can learn. And then elastic. And then notions. Thread, 1 pack of 1/2-inch wide double fold bias tape. 1 pack of, or package, of 1/2-inch wide twill tape. So now some of the sometimes patterns, if there's not so many different things, it will have the fabric in one, and then it'll say right under that notions, and you'll have the same notions for all of them, or it'll kind of separate them out but still have them on one line. But the back of the pattern will tell you all of these things. So we'll also tell you the sewing pattern number, the sewing pattern name, and how many pieces total there are. I don't know why you need to know that. I've never needed to know that, but I guess it comes in handy for someone. So that's the front, that's the back. Like I said, since it's not a garment, it has a lot of just basic information for the craft projects. Let's check our books here and see if we're missing anything. Okay. See if I can use my scissors to point a little bit better. Okay, so our booklet says, the back of the pattern will give you a description of the garment, a sketch of the structural lines in front and back, a suggested list of fabrics for achieving the picture on front, information as to suitability for napped, don't know, plaids or stretch fabrics, yardage requirements based on view, fabric width, and pattern size, a list of notions needed. So that's true for even our little craft one. There's a little pattern envelope. All right, let's open her up. So you will have the instructions, sewing instructions, cutting layout instructions, and assuming it's uncut like this one. So this is called factory folded uncut. If you end up getting into collecting vintage patterns or looking to build your stash through the secondhand markets, factory folded uncut. And this usually has several pages to it, but it has a lot of information on it. And when we get into garment sewing, these will have even more information on it. So again, we need to know what we're looking at and what we need to know so that we can build on that. So this gives you cute little better drawings of all the views of things you can make. Again, we're going to be doing C. And then it gives you all the pieces, kind of outlines of all the pieces. I always like that they did this. This comes in handy, for me at least, when something has a bunch of pieces to it. I like referencing this, and I like looking at it. Like right now, I'm going to be doing C, and so I can it's in order of the view. And so I can kind of look at a glance and see how many pieces my item needs. So out of the 33 pieces this has, C only has 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I don't see any more C's. 4 pieces. And then also it tells you when you go to look for your view, can you see that? I'm not sure. Zoom in just a little bit. And then when you go to look for your view that you're going to be sewing, so there's a sewing machine tote, and that's going to be, and it's even like spelled out for you. So sewing machine tote, pocket bottom and handle wrap, use pieces 1 and 3, use pieces 2, 4, and 5, lining, use pieces 1, 3, and 4, padding, use pieces 1, 3, 4, and 5 of this 44, 45-inch polyester fleece. Interfacing, use, so it tells you, which is really not here, see, right here. So I can go here and see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just double check. Yep, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's 4 pieces. So see, the chair seat and back cover only take 4 pieces. So that's pretty nice, but you have to cut it out of the fabric and the padding. But there's no lining used or anything like that. So super nice. Okay, so that's what the first sheet always kind of tells you is cutting layout, all the pieces, kind of a good picture, and then general cutting and cutting information. So look at that real close. And this is pretty standard with commercial sewing patterns. Pattern print side down is this gray box. Pattern printed side up is the white box. Special cutting notes here. Position of pattern pieces may vary slightly according to your pattern size. General directions for cutting. Pre-shrink and iron all fabric. For double thickness, fold fabric with the right sides together. That's pretty standard with everything. Pin pattern to a wrong side of fabric. Also pretty standard to everything. For single thickness, and it will tell you if you need to do single thickness. And it kind of took me a while over the years to figure that out. Pin pattern to right side of fabric for single thickness. And then the little star and the little snowflake looking thing means something. Okay, and that's the first page. And you can, if you're just doing one view at a time, which you should at this point, you can ignore, all the rest of it. And I even, way back in the day, I would take a highlighter and I would highlight everything that pertained to the view that I was doing. Because way back in the day, I bought these patterns just for me. And they were super, super easy to come by. Hobby Lobby and Joann's was, Anyway, so don't be afraid to do that, In fact, I'll do it right now. Why not? Because the more you mark ahead of time like that, the less you will have to search and find and spend mental energy looking for your view and stuff. So there. Okay, next page. We're on to sewing directions. And this is where it's all just relative to what commercial sewing pattern it is, if it's Simplicity or McCall's, and this is inspired by Project Runway, so it's going to have its own designer quirks to the pattern itself. So it's going to be a little bit different than just the standard Simplicity patterns, in my experience. But it has the same references. And for the most part, they do a fine job. I've only run into a few times where the sewing pattern is just jacked up. So, don't let that scare you away from using commercial sewing patterns. Okay, so the sewing directions have the same kind of fabric key. Right side is gray, wrong side is white. Interfacing has little marks on it, and then lining is polka dotted. So it usually tells you what seam allowance to do. It will tell you, this one says right sides together, stitch 1/2 inch seams, press all seams open. Sewing procedures in italics or italicized, and sewing directions are defined below, dart seam, blah, blah, blah. So, they do a pretty good job at spelling it out for you. Especially this again, this is a really good first beginner project because it's it's mapped out for an actual beginner, which is nice. So, this is just general. So this is nice. This is just general sewing directions. You know, how to stuff, how to do a ladder stitch, how to do fleece, how to do a dart seam, how to do the ends and the corners. Nice. So for double fold bias tape, very nice. So this one spells it out really well. So if I do a pattern, that's why I do recommend starting sewing using commercial sewing patterns and using something that's not a garment. Because the instructions are easier and they're just mapped out, usually for absolute beginners. I mean, this girl looks almost like a teenager. So, there's that one, and then on and on and on. So, next week, we will start prepping for the view C here. I want you to... You should already have your pattern picked out. You should already have your fabric, at least an idea. I don't know if I cut that out or not, but Lucas came in this room and scared the bejeebies out of me. So anyway, so yes, I do recommend you should have your sewing pattern. You should have your fabric picked out and any notions that it asks for. Because next week we will be starting sewing, like I said. Okay, kind of the final thing here as far as what's included in the envelope. These are your patterns. So this will be usually pretty thick, and it's a humongous sheet, and it has a bunch of all the pieces on it. So there's 33 pieces in this one, so that means they had to make sheets big enough to hold 33 pieces, and so it looks like several sheets. So, in fact, I can probably go ahead and prep it now and get these cut out. So we'll go ahead and do that now. All right. So view C tells me that I need 1 1/4 yards. And I need some padding. I don't know if I'll do the bottom part, so I don't know that I'll worry about that right now. And I need padding and elastic for the bottom part. I don't know if I'll do that. I definitely want to do the back cover. Notions, I need thread. And then double fold bias tape and twill tape. So I'm kind of curious where the twill tape comes in handy and what I can use instead of, because I'm not real sure I have twill tape or anything like it. So, but I want you to do the same thing. So get your fabric, get your notions, and go ahead and look at your view, your instructions, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out my 4 pieces and get them cut out. Turn back cover right side out. Encase lower edge of cover and binding. Okay. Encase lower edge, cover, and binding. Okay. So it's just to cover the lower edge of the seat backing cover thing. Okay. So that means it will need to sort of go with this fabric combination. So, or I could just go complete opposite and do a fun orange. I kind of like that, actually. I kind of like the orange. If I wanted to not be so kooky, I could use the blue. But I'm kind of liking the orange. It's quirky. It's loud. Why not? So we'll put both those out. Yeah, it's kind of, I'm good with those options, actually. Good with those. Okay, I've gathered my notions. I have cut out my pattern pieces. I have double checked that the fabric that I'm using, since I'm using fabric scraps, is enough for all the pieces. I have matched my notions to the fabric. Okay, and that's it. So that's all the prep work I'm going to do for right now. That kind of gives you an idea of what you need to be doing between now and next Thursday, when we finally cut our fabric, iron everything, cut it all out, and start sewing. So, very excited. Thank you so much for sticking with it. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. I'm really enjoying filming it and getting it out to you. And we will just carry on. So, let me know what you are planning on sewing for your first project for next week down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Bye.